Hi guys, Evan here. Tonight we're looking at PT22 Game 4. This is a really tough one, especially because I think the rules are the kind of rules that are difficult to remember. Normally when I work through a game, I'm feeling like I remember the rules pretty well after I've written them down. I didn't feel that way here. What's more, we've got a grouping component and an ordering component within those groups. So it's a hybrid sort of game. You could call it advanced ordering, but there's a lot to keep track of. After I read it, I see that essentially we have these two teams, 1 and 2, and then within those teams you've got either a front, a middle, or a rear position, right? So team 1, team 2, rear, middle, front. And then there's 6 jugglers going in. Let me get them written out. G, H, K, L, N, P, and Q. And then we see that that's 7 jugglers. We're not going to be able to fit them all into these groups, so one person is out. There's just this one lone straggler who's out. It turns out to play a fairly important role in the game, not as important as maybe you expect it to play. From there, we're ready to launch into the rules. If G or H or both are assigned to teams, they're in front positions. At first I read this mistakenly as G and H, both in, then they're in the front, then like they're in the front. Well, that's not right. If G's in, then it's in the front. If H is in, then it's in the front. So they're really separate rules. G is in, then we've got G in front. So anytime you place G in, it's going to pop into that front spot. Same with H. H in, then we know it's out front. It's a conditional rule. And you don't have to write in, that's pretty automatic, right? That when you say G, that means G in. H, then H in. Then for our next rule, if K's in, then K's in the middle, right? So K, middle. And you might want to just put these up by here so that reminds you that if K's in at all, it's going into these middle spots. Same with G and H. Just pop them right there. The tricky part about that is you have to remember that they don't necessarily have to be in, but if they go in, that's where they're going. Now if L is in, then L is on team 1. So again, same thing, you could put L up over here. Just keep in mind the possibility that it could be out. And then P is not on a team with N, so P, N, that's out. I'm choosing to write it this way because it's more of a visual representation. You could write it like P, then not N, or you could write it more this way, like P, then not N. Up to you, really, but I chose to just go with this because if I see P and N in the same group, I know I've committed a foul there. And then same thing, K is not on a team with N. And then we get one more rule just like this, that P is not with Q. Now, our last rule is that if H is on team 2, then Q is in team 1 and is in a middle position. So really annoying rule, very difficult to remember. If H pops into 2, then that means Q is in 1 and is in that middle spot. Now, at this point in the game, I was sort of wondering what we should do. Is there anything here that leads me to believe we could have scenarios, maybe? Are there any key inferences to see? And after glancing at it for just a quick second, I was thinking, no way. There's so many possibilities in this game. Because of this out spot, you don't even know really anything. Things are just flying around. L can be out, G, H, all those things can be out. So it's going to be impossible to handle this game with scenarios. And moreover, there's not anything solid that we know already. So that's when you know it's shaping up to be a pretty tricky game. The thing to do on this game is just don't freak out. It's not going to be a big deal when you get games like this because usually the questions themselves aren't going to be as hard as you might expect. They've given you all this information to handle and they know you're going to be scared of that. But just keep calm and use your rules one at a time. Okay, and normally I don't do the acceptability questions, but I think they're pretty hard here, so we're going to definitely look at them. You're still doing the same thing. You're taking the rules one at a time and seeing where they're violated, if anywhere. So let me just make it clear that that's a G here. I've written it out, and they just give you team 2 here. So I'm taking my rules. I'm checking first if the G's and the H's are in the right place, and I can't eliminate anything with that. So that feels like kind of a bummer already. How about this rule about K? K, then it's in the middle. Yeah, we see that violated right here. So that one's out at least. And now remember, this is team 2. So I move on to the next rule, and if I see L, then I know that's going to be in team 1. This is broken here. We can't have L in. Now next I'm looking down at all of these rules here. PN, do we see PN anywhere? Do we see KN anywhere? Yeah, that can cross A off. And then what about PQ? Yeah, that gets rid of D. So we're left with E as the right answer. So it looked freaky, it looked like it was going to be hard, but it turned out we did it just like any acceptability question. Always try that strategy of taking your rules one at a time and seeing where they're violated before you try anything else. On an acceptability question, 99% of the time it's going to help you. There's actually a question in this game, 22, where it's not good enough, and that happens sometimes where you see an acceptability question later in the game. So we'll take a peek at that later. Okay, in question 21, we have H assigned to team 2, right? So I redraw this, and I'm using green to tell you that this is when I'm doing mini diagram work, right? And this is team 1 and team 2. H pops into 2, and we know that's going to be the front spot. And then now I look for any rules that get triggered here other than this rule that we already handled. And bam, there's something about H2 right there. Q now has to go in the middle in team 1. So now it's asking us what the assignments could be for team 1, and it's given it to us all here. And in this, let me tell you how they set it up here visually. This is the front, this is the middle, and this is the rear. So right away I look and I can eliminate all of these that don't have Q going right in the middle. So that's 3 gone right there, bam. And then I'm just looking at D and E, and I think I'll take my rules again and see if anything's violated, clearly. I'm referencing those rules all the time. I see this G, that's in the rear, that's no good. So I can eliminate D, I'm left with E as the only answer. So just a little 2-step process to do that. It's an early question in the game, you shouldn't expect it to be too hard. Okay, 22 is that acceptability question that I was talking about. And here we're looking at team 1 instead of team 2. And again, it's that same thing where this is the front, this is the middle, and this is the rear. So I take a quick peek and see if I can do it like I do an acceptability question normally, but it turns out not to help us, right? So that's a bummer. I'm not thinking there's anything I can do besides just try these out. And they've already had team 1 here, so when I was doing this, I actually just wrote in what team 2 is kind of going to look like right up next to it, you know, so like P, N, I got all the things that I know we need to have out here, right? But we'll do it in the board just to make it more clear to you what's going on here. So evaluating A, we've got G right here, K here, L here. We know already that satisfies all the rules. What I noticed here is a pattern that turns out to be really important. K is in this middle spot, right? So if I try to put H in 2 anywhere, it's gonna screw everything up by forcing Q into the middle spot in team 1. So that means I know in all of these, unless I see Q in the middle, and I don't see Q in the middle on any of them, H is out. So that makes my life a whole lot easier. I can just leave H in the out spot here. And you're gonna figure that out sooner rather than later. Even if you're trying to make an order and things are bumping into each other, you're gonna figure it out. I was lucky to see it right away, so it helped me out. So then now that I know H is in there, I can very quickly see who I've got left. You know, P, N, and then Q, and then I just check if it violates anything, and mainly I'm looking down here, right? So we see Q and P together, and we know that's no good, and we can cross out A. Now let's do the same thing for B, this laborious process here. Again, I was just doing this right up by the side with just adding the things in right like they're drawn here. And then right away I throw L in here, and that is a problem, right? Because I see that if L is in, it's going to have to be in team 1. So I can eliminate that, and then I quickly see that I can also eliminate D because L's not in. Remember, because K is in the middle, H has to be out, so there's no way that we can have L just like hanging out in group 2. So I'm getting rid of D as well. Now for C, L, K, Q, that gives me P and N, and already we're running into a problem there. So that we get rid of C, and then we've got our right answer by elimination. For 23, we have another mini diagrammer, so I'm just writing a little diagram off to the side where I can do this work. 1, 2, and then I throw G assigned to team 1, you know that's going in the front by now. And then we got to figure out who's a pair of jugglers that could also be assigned to team 1. And I really think the easiest thing with this game is just to try these out really quickly. So we got the G, and then I'm looking at the HN, and right away I see that H can't be here. It needs to be in the front spot. So I'm eliminating A. Then how about K and L? Well, we know if L's in, it has to be in team 2. In team 1, that's fine, right? Then H will have to be out. Otherwise, we couldn't have this K or L in the middle, right? We'd need to have Q jumping in the middle. So H is out, and then I put Q, P, and right away I know I violated this rule now. So I'm just doing that chain really quickly. So B's gone, now I throw in K, P. Again, I know H is going to have to be out, otherwise Q would end up in this spot where K is. So I do that, and then I see quickly we've got a problem now, because if I try to throw L in, it's violating this rule. L has to be in group 1. So now this looks a little better. This one has L in it, so I throw L in here, L and N. Again, Q's not in group 1, so you know H is out. But I throw the H out, and then I got P, and then N. Oh no, not N. Never mind. P and K, and then what's left? Q. And then that's a problem, right? This rule right here, P and Q. So we kind of notice a pattern developing, where the issue is there's going to be a bunch of things that maybe can't work together getting thrown into that other group. So that gets eliminated, and we're left with E as the right answer. That's 3 correct E's in a row. Or sorry, 4 correct E's in a row. Just a side note, never get worried about that. They'll sometimes have 4 correct one letter in a row. It happens. Okay, last problem is another mini diagrammer, so I just get it drafted out quick. Again, this is front, middle, rear, team 1 and team 2, and here's the little out spot. So G's assigned to team 1, and then K is assigned to team 2. And we know if K is assigned, it's got to be in the middle. I haven't really been paying attention to that too much because it hasn't mattered for what we were doing. But now it's asking us who has to be in the rear position in team 2. And I quickly realized that if you come up with an acceptable order, then that's what has to be there, right? So I just focused on making an acceptable order. I threw, H onto team 2 so that then I know Q's here. And then I'm seeing if this can work out. We got to split up Q and P, so I throw P right here. And then I could have L here or N here, and then L here or N here. And I just did it, you know? It might take you a second. You might have a misstep where you don't find something right away that works. But that's the best way to do this problem. Just find an acceptable order. And then whatever's in the back, in that rear spot on team 2, that's your answer. And here that's D. Okay, so pretty tricky game. You got to play it a little heads up with just being really aware of these rules. Make sure you diagram those in a way that makes sense to you because you don't want to make this any harder on yourself. One last thing about the nature of the setup here. It would have been fine too if you diagram this team 1, team 2, and then front, middle, rear like that. In fact, that kind of seems to be more the way they were thinking about it, the writers of the test, and that would be totally fine. And that makes it a little more clear that this is an advanced ordering game. I was thinking of this more as grouping first, you know, so I'm putting the groups on the bottom. And really, I do think the grouping component played a much bigger role in this. So it makes sense for me mentally to do that, but you'd be totally fine with this diagram right here. Okay, so that's the game. See you on the next one. Thanks.